So, the Strait of Hormuz is in the news again, surprise, surprise. You've been wondering how is it possible that such a small patch of water causes so much stress to the world economy, causes you headaches, and drains your wallet faster than your child support? Well, don't you worry, because I am your father, and this is a quick story time. See, Strait of Hormuz is a narrow sea passage that connects Gulf of Oman that goes into the Indian Ocean on one side and the Persian Gulf on the other one that goes into land. This all means that whoever controls this 21-mile wide passage controls everything that goes in and goes out. Now, this is what I want you to do. Go to your Google Maps and zoom in straight in the center of the Persian Gulf, and there you're gonna see a slight color disparity. Keep zooming in and you're gonna see a big oil rig. If you move slightly to the right, you're gonna see a similar thing, but this time it's gonna be an oil tanker, and this is exactly what's behind all those mega economies of the Middle East. Because this region is so rich in oil and gas, this means that all the countries around the Persian Gulf are heavily investing in this industry, which can be a problem if this coast is the only one you got, which is pretty much the case for most of them. If we start at the very end, we have the country of Iraq, which was devastated by various wars throughout the decades and internal instability, and it has only a tiny patch of coast right on the Persian Gulf. This means that if they're trying to sell any oil via oil tankers, they have to do it through the Persian Gulf and by extension through the Strait of Hormuz. And how impactful this may be, you may ask. Well, I just say that more than 50% of their GDP depends entirely on oil and oil products. Now, moving down to the south, we have a country of Kuwait, which is even a smaller nation that is pretty much in the same boat, meaning that it only has one coast on the Persian Gulf. Now, just like Iraq, more than 50% of the GDP of Kuwait comes from oil, so if they don't want to use the sea route, the only other option is via land, and that's really not easy when you haven't had a great relations with your neighbors, to say the least. Now, moving further south, we have the Saudi Arabia, which is a little bit interesting because unlike many other countries in the region, this one actually has two coasts, but unfortunately, the second one is on the Red Sea. Now, this is a problem because most of their oil and gas production are on the other side, on the Persian Gulf, so if you want to transfer it to the Red Sea, you have to go across the desert. These projects are very expensive to build, but also the region of the Red Sea is also problematic because of the war that has been going on in Yemen. Regardless though, it's still in a better situation because its dependency on oil is not as high and it's hovering around 30 to 40%, and it's managed to diversify it in other spheres, and it's a larger country to begin with. Then we have some smaller nations such as Bahrain, UAE, and Qatar, which arguably managed to diversify the most away from oil and gas into business and tourism. Not only this, but around 10% of world flying passengers go through this region to connect to Southeast Asia, Europe, North Africa, Americas, and Australia. Now, this represents its own set of challenges because everything is nice and well where there's peace, but once the rockets and drones start flying around, well, companies stop flying their planes, and then you have a problem. But it's not all about business and oil, it's also about gas, so for a moment, let's focus on Qatar. See, this small nation is actually a juggernaut when it comes to producing LNG, and this matters more than you think. See, right off its coast, there is something that is known as the North Field, and it represents a very large area of natural gas right under the Persian Gulf, and it contains around 10% of the world's known reserves. But like with many other things, it's not all about the size, but also about the quality, because as they say, this one is non-associated. Now, basically what this means is that usually when you find a gas field, it's mixed with crude oil, so you have to separate it and extract it, which is more complex and more expensive. This non-associated gas field basically has not a lot of oil, so extracting it's a lot easier and a lot cheaper. Now, this in of itself is not the only reason why Qatar is so important, because it also has an incredible infrastructure. See, unlike crude oil that basically goes directly into tankers, natural gas has to be cooled down all the way to minus negative 165 Celsius, turned into liquid, then loaded into special container ships and sent to its destination, which is very expensive, and only a handful of countries possess this ability. All of this allows Qatar to supply around 20% of the world's need for LNG, and if this stops flowing, the world market goes into a spiral. Now, all of this brings us back to the strait and what kind of leverage Iran has over it. See, the southern side of the strait is controlled by Oman and the northern one is controlled by Iran. Now, if Iran decides to tell all the ships, their companies, and the countries in the region that they have to go through by hugging their coast, thus playing by their rules and paying them tolls, well, that's not really a problem, is it? All that those ships have to do is to go through by hugging the other side, the coast of Oman, and there are no problems. But because Iran is a superior force and it has a superior navy, it is capable of laying mines right off the coast of Oman, so all the ships have to go through the other side. Now, I'm not gonna go into the politics of the whole thing because I'm sure that you heard a lot of it over the past months and days and you're hearing everything every single day. And this is not the only instance when one singular country has such a power over a vital route, because after all, we have the Suez Canal, which is controlled by Egypt, we have Bosphorus, which is controlled by Turkey, and we have Panama Canal, which is controlled, well, by Panama. But it just tells you how a combination of geopolitical factors and such a vital resource can sometimes come together and cause problems for the entire world. Anyways, this is a very amateur and quick overview of what's actually happening, but if you like this type of content, you can consider liking, sharing, subscribing. I talk about history, science, stuff that are trending overall. So yeah, do all the thing, like, share, subscribe, and in the meantime, I'll see you on the next one. Stay safe.